144,000 people in New Mexico living within a half mile of an oil and gas production facility, which includes 20% of the indigenous residents. How does oil and gas drilling affect systemic racism? We'll hand it over to one of the New Mexico representatives.
I'll take that, Dominic. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Right now there is a lawsuit because of oil and gas and its effects on children, frontline people, and indigenous people. As part of the lawsuit, they are saying, at least our lawyers are saying, well, in the legislature, we can fix this. We can do bills and create laws. But I don't know that they understand that, fighting against $1 billion industry is tough. And they can put out commercials. They can put out all kinds of flyers. They can do all these things that we can't do as an unpaid, unstaffed legislature. So it is huge for our indigenous people. We are working to help them as much as we can, especially with setbacks, and working to keep gas and oil away from Chaco Canyon, some of their more spiritual entities. But it's a big problem. We are working on it diligently. And again, there is a lawsuit that says, we need to stop this. We need to help our people who are our frontline people, our front indigenous people, and our children, because this isn't fair to them. And as a state, this is something we are pushing for. We are trying very hard with legislation to keep gas and oil away from these industries. And that's where setbacks come in, not only to schools, but as we get schools passed to our frontline people, to our indigenous communities. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Our other New Mexico representatives or commissioner, would you like to add to that?
So I'll just kind of add 2 points to what Representative Sariñana mentioned. So the first is that when we set about passing our executive order on setbacks, we actually were asked to do that by a coalition of advocates and community members who live in the Northwest region of the state. And the reason they came to us was because there is a very evident pump jack less than a mile from a Navajo chapter house school, our counselor chapter there in the Northwest part of our state. So that was really the impetus, this very stark visual reminder of that development occurring right in where Native kids go to school. In addition, in the southeast part of our state, we have folks who quite frankly are often forgotten. They are, some of them, oil workers themselves, that are Latino, that are Hispano, that are living with all of the output from the industry, who desperately would love to have a transition, but don't quite know what that means for their paycheck, for their ability to provide for their families. So this is a deeper issue than what we were just talking about today. Whatever transition that occurs away from fossil fuels needs to be just, needs to take into account those indigenous and Hispano and Latino workers as well.
Thank you.
I would just echo that as well. This Representative Tara Lujan, the majority of our fossil fuel workers are indigenous or Latino workers. There's actually been a radio broadcast commercial regarding that, and from the industry to push against us when we're saying we need this just transition. Well, these are folks and workers. This is a workforce that is dependent on an industry that is unpredictable. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And when you're focused on a certain population to be your frontline workers in this industry, the question has to be asked, how well are they educated at the work that they're doing, as far as the consequences and the impacts that could impede their health. So I think that when we're looking at those areas, and especially in our Navajo Nation, what we mentioned in the northwest part of this state, where are we talking and when are we talking to our tribal and rural communities who have these industries in their back door, literally in their backyard? And how have policies influenced what has happened? And where's the responsibility in legislation to help them? Because if you see in our state, most of our state is rural, but the most impacted are those areas, the Northwest, and now in our Southeast areas where the Permian Basin is, but before in San Juan County, in the four corners of the states in our Navajo Nation. And they've been impacted by other things that the federal deregulation has done with uranium mining and other effects. These are those populations that have had to deal with this and still haven't been compensated for. And then, so it's packed on top of them. It's one thing on top of another thing, and it's a continuation. So there is a racial concept and racial issue with this, because these are the poorest communities, the frontline communities that continuously have these impacts from industries on them.